The holiday rush had taken over the family. Her mother-in-law decided to throw a grand feast and invited all the relatives. Her husband cheerfully informed his wife about the invitation and handed her an impressive shopping list. "Honey, Mom is gathering all the relatives at her place for New Year's. We're invited too. Salmon, red caviar, sturgeon, the amounts were staggering." The woman smiled sweetly and assured him, "Of course, dear, everything will be ready." Hello, dear listeners. I'm glad to welcome you to my channel. I present to you a new interesting story. Enjoy listening. Kimberly woke up on Saturday to her phone ringing. 6:30 in the morning, a day off, and Barbara's name lit up on the screen. She declined the call, rolled over to the other side, and tried to fall back asleep, but within a minute the phone came alive in Matthew's hands. "Hello, Mom." "Yes, I'm home." "Of course, I'll stop by." "Okay, I'll be there in an hour." He hung up, stretched, and glanced guiltily at his wife. "Kim, Mom is asking me to stop by. She says the jars of jam are heavy, need to help carry them down to the storage room." Kimberly said nothing. She knew the script by heart. Now Matthew would get dressed, drive to his mother's, spend half the day there, return with a jar of strawberry jam, and spend half the evening talking about how Mom tries so hard all alone, what a trooper she is, canned everything herself. The fact that the sugar, berries, and jars were bought in July by Kimberly with her own salary, no one would remember that. "You don't mind?" Matthew clarified, pulling on his jeans. "Go ahead," she answered shortly. When the door closed behind her husband, Kimberly got up, turned on the coffee maker, and opened her laptop. The expense spreadsheet for November looked dismal. Loan for the sunroom, $30,000. Apartment rent, $35,000. Utilities, $8,000. Groceries, transportation, internet, phone, another $30,000. Out of $150,000 in total income, $47,000 remained for living. They hadn't bought clothes in 4 months. The last time they went to the movies was in August. Matthew wanted to give Kimberly gold earrings for her birthday, but had to postpone it. There was nothing to buy them with. And the sunroom at Barbara's stood there, showing off its brand new plastic windows. 10 by 13 feet, wood paneling, tile roof. Her mother-in-law showed it to all guests and told them how she saved up herself, how she found the workers, how she approved the project. Not a word about the fact that the $300,000 for construction were provided by Matthew and Kimberly, taking out a bank loan. "I'll pay you back in 3 months, dears," Barbara said then, pressing her hand to her heart. "I have a lot for sale, there's already a buyer, we'll close the deal in September." September passed, October passed, November was ending. The lot, according to her mother-in-law, the buyer decided not to take at the last moment. Kimberly finished her coffee, closed the laptop, and went to take a shower. Pointless to be angry, Matthew wouldn't understand anyway. For him, his mother was a saint who raised him alone after the divorce from his father, didn't sleep nights, gave him everything best. He sincerely believed that now it was their duty to help her in everything. And Kimberly would help gladly if the help didn't turn into a system of extracting money. Matthew returned at 3 in the afternoon with a jar of jam and a bag of pastries. "Mom sent these, she says you were tired yesterday, have some homemade food." He placed the bag on the table. "Kim, she's such a trooper, can you imagine? Yesterday she mopped the entire apartment floor alone, washed the curtains, made pastries. At her age. I felt really ashamed that we rarely stopped by." Kimberly took the pastries out of the bag. "With cabbage. Bought, without a doubt, from the deli on the corner." She recognized the shape and golden crust. Barbara didn't know how to make pastries and didn't like to. But she knew how to create legends. "How are things with you, Matt?" She changed the subject. "Fine. Work's crazy, servers are acting up, but we're managing. How about you?" "Also fine. Submitted reports, boss praised me." They ate, watched the series, went to bed. An ordinary day off. Quiet, measured, without arguments. Kimberly had long ago understood that if she didn't object, didn't argue, didn't raise uncomfortable topics, life flowed peacefully. Matthew was content. Barbara was content, everyone had their interests served. Kimberly learned to stay silent and wait. On Monday at work, her colleague Laura asked if Kimberly wanted to chip in for the company party. $500 per person, restaurant, entertainment program, New Year's. Can't do it, Laura. Kimberly spread her hands apologetically. Budget won't stretch. At all? Laura was surprised. Kim, you make decent money, don't you? I know Matt works too. You don't have kids, the apartment's rented but it's not a palace. Where does the money go? Kimberly hesitated. Laura was a good person. They'd been friends for 3 years, since Kimberly got hired at the trading company as a sales manager. She could tell her, at least part of it. We're paying off a loan. A big one. The mother-in-law promised to pay back, didn't pay back. Laura whistled. Wow. And does Matt know his mom screwed you over? He thinks mom's not to blame. Circumstances. The buyer backed out. The recession. Kim, sweetie, Laura leaned closer, lowering her voice. Have you ever said no to that woman? Even once? What's the point? Matt will take her side. There'll be a scandal. Do I need that? You need to be respected. They're using you like an ATM. Kimberly said nothing. Laura sighed, patted her on the shoulder, and returned to her desk. The rest of the day Kimberly worked on autopilot, responding to clients, processing orders, preparing reports. And one thought kept spinning in her head. Someday this will end. Someday Matthew will see the truth. Or she herself will do something. In the evening, when they were having dinner of buckwheat with sausages, Matthew said, Kim, Mom called. She's asking if we'll help her change the chandelier in the living room. The old one's wobbling, she's afraid it'll fall. Of course we'll help, Kimberly answered evenly. When? Saturday, probably. I'll buy the chandelier, might as well check the bulbs, maybe need to tighten the wiring. Kimberly nodded. She calculated in her head. A chandelier, $500 minimum if buying a decent one. Barbara liked things to look nice. Most likely Matthew would spend $700. From their budget, naturally. Would her mother-in-law reimburse? No, of course not. She'd say thank you, kiss her son, call him golden, and in a week ask for something else. Matt, can't Mom buy the chandelier herself? Kimberly asked carefully. She has her pension, she doesn't work, utilities aren't much. Matthew frowned. Kim, what does that have to do with it? She's my mother, we should help. I'm not against helping, I'm saying we barely have money ourselves. Maybe at least discuss how much we're spending. Mom doesn't ask for extras. It's a chandelier, a necessity. Do you want her sitting in the dark? Kimberly gave up. It was pointless. For Matthew, his mother was always right. Always needed help. Always deserved sacrifices. He grew up with the certainty that a son must support his parents. Must be grateful. Must repay debts for his upbringing. Barbara had drilled this into him since childhood, methodically, persistently, and now was reaping the benefits. On Saturday, Matthew left in the morning for his mother's with a brand new chandelier for $800, shiny, crystal, with 5 arms. He returned at 6 in the evening, pleased. Hung it up, beautiful. Mom was so happy, even teared up. Says she'd been dreaming of one like that for a long time. Kimberly smiled and served dinner. $800. Almost half their remainder for the month. They could have bought themselves winter boots. Matthew's soul had cracked, he was patching it with tape. They could have gone to the mall, picked out a new coat for Kimberly. Her old one was in its 4th season, worn through at the elbows. But no, a chandelier for Barbara was more important. A week passed, then another. December came into its own. Snow, frost, pre-holiday bustle, holiday music played in stores, windows glowed with garlands, people were buying up gifts and delicacies. Kimberly walked past, trying not to look at price tags. The New Year's promised to be modest. They planned to celebrate it together, at home, with $20 champagne and Olivier salad. Matthew suggested buying at least red caviar, but Kimberly talked him out of it. No money. And then, one evening, Matthew came home from work, took off his jacket, went into the room, and turned on his laptop. For half an hour he sat staring at the screen, reading something, occasionally nodding. Then he called his mother, talked for about 20 minutes. Kimberly heard fragments of phrases. "Yes, Mom. Of course. How many people will there be?" He hung up, sat down across from Kimberly, and handed her a sheet torn from a notepad. "Honey, Mom is gathering all the relatives at her place for New Year's. We're invited too." He smiled as if announcing good news. "Here's the list of what we need to buy." Kimberly took the sheet. Matthew's handwriting, large, sweeping. She ran her eyes over the lines and felt everything inside turn cold. Salmon, 5 kilograms. Red caviar, 1 kilogram. Sturgeon, 4 kilograms. She slowly raised her eyes to her husband. He was looking at her expectantly, with a slightly guilty look, but without a shadow of understanding of what he just asked. "Matt," Kimberly said quietly, "do you understand how much this costs?" "Well, expensive, probably," he shrugged. "But Mom's not asking for no reason. All the relatives will be there. Aunt Lucy with Uncle Steve, nephews Arthur and Carl with their wives, neighbor Zelda. About 20 people. We need to do it right." 20 people, Kimberly repeated. "And who else is bringing food?" "Veronica's bringing chicken, potatoes, and herring under a fur coat. Mom said Veronica and Danny have it hard enough as it is." "He's still little." "Danny's 8. Veronica works as chief accountant at an oil and gas construction company. She makes, according to rumors, $120,000 minimum. But Veronica is the real daughter. And Kimberly is the daughter-in-law. An outsider. Convenient. Powerless." Kimberly stood up, went into the room, took out her phone, and opened the store app. Salmon, $24 per pound, times 11 pounds, $264. Red caviar, $110 per pound. Sturgeon, $27 per pound, times 9 pounds, $243. Plus lemons, greens, bread for sandwiches. Total, $12,000. Almost their entire salary for the month. She returned to the kitchen. Matthew was eating dumplings, looking at his phone. "Matt, that's $12,000, she said. He raised his head, blinked. "What?" "The groceries from the list. $12,000. That can't be." She showed him the calculations on the screen. He looked, frowned, shook his head. "Well, maybe we'll find it cheaper somewhere. At the farmer's market, for example." "The farmer's market is more expensive." "Then we'll catch a sale." "Matt, there are no sales on sturgeon." He irritably put down his fork. "Kim, what do you want to hear from me?" Mom asked, "Right? So we have to. We'll figure it out somehow. We can take out another loan, a small one. Or I'll borrow from Victor." He promised if anything, he'd help. Kimberly stood silently, looking at her husband. He really didn't understand. Not at all. For him, the words Mom asked were a universal key, opening any doors, canceling any objections, justifying any expenses. "Fine," she said. "I'll buy everything." Matthew beamed. "Really? Kim, you're the best. I knew you'd support me. Mom will be so happy." He stood up, hugged her, kissed the top of her head. Kimberly stood motionless, feeling something hard and cold slowly igniting in her chest. The decision matured instantly, clearly, irrevocably. She smiled at her husband. "Of course, dear. Everything will be ready." He went to the room to play video games. Kimberly stayed in the kitchen, sitting, staring out the window at the falling snow. Somewhere below, children were laughing, sledding down a hill. Somewhere in the neighboring apartment, music was playing. Life went on as usual. And Kimberly finally had a plan. Kimberly woke up Monday with a feeling of strange calm. Matthew had already left for work, leaving a note on the table. "Kim, don't forget about the salmon. Maybe you'll have time to check prices today? Love you." She crumpled the paper and threw it in the trash. At breakfast she opened her phone and texted Veronica. "Hi. What did Mom order you to buy for New Year's?" The answer came almost immediately. Kim, get this, chicken, potatoes, and herring under a fur coat. She says with Danny it's hard for me, he's still little, let it be simpler. Kimberly smirked and typed the next message. And how much will it come out to approximately? $350. Good chicken costs $100. Potatoes, beets, carrots, herring are pennies, mayo, eggs. Well, $400 max. Got it. Thanks. Kimberly put down the phone and finished her coffee. $400 versus $12,000. Veronica earned twice as much as she and Matthew combined, lived in her own apartment inherited from her grandmother. Her husband bought her a car last year, a brand new Honda CR-V. Danny really did go to school, but what did that have to do with food for the holiday? Nothing. Simply Veronica was the daughter. Beloved, only, precious. And Kimberly was the daughter-in-law. An outsider. A source of money. At work she pretended to be focused all day, answered calls, processed orders, smiled at clients. At lunch Matthew called. Kim, how are you? Have you looked at where to get the salmon? Yeah, looking, she lied. Lots of options. I think I'll get it at Pike Place Market, it's fresh there. Right, good idea. And get grain caviar or pressed. Kimberly barely suppressed a laugh. Matthew didn't know the difference between grain and pressed caviar, just as he didn't know the difference between salmon and trout. He was just repeating his mother's words. Grain, probably, she answered. Looks prettier. Yes, exactly, Mom said the same thing. Okay, won't distract you, get to work. See you tonight. He hung up. Kimberly put the phone on the table and took a deep breath. Laura, walking past with a cup of tea, gave her an attentive look. Kim, why are you so pale? Everything's fine, Laura. Just tired. Don't lie. I've known you 3 years, I can see when you're not yourself. What happened? Kimberly looked around, no one was in the department, everyone had gone to lunch, and briefly retold the situation. The list, the prices, the salary, the loan. Laura listened, eyes widening. Kimberly, this is some kind of mockery. $12,000? She's lost her mind. She hasn't lost her mind. She's smart. She knows Matt won't refuse, and I won't dare object. So what are you going to do? Kimberly was silent, then slowly smiled. I'll buy groceries, just not the ones on the list. Laura perched on the edge of the desk, squinting with interest. Tell me. I'll buy what we can afford. About 300. Imitation crab, herring, trout, capelin roe. I'll tell Matthew everything's as needed. He won't check, he doesn't know fish. And at his mother's for the holiday, let there be a surprise. Laura clapped her hands. Brilliant. Kim, you're a rebel. What will Matt say? We'll see. Maybe he'll finally understand what his mommy is doing. And maybe he'll yell at you. He yells? I'll divorce him, Kimberly said calmly. I'm 31, no kids, I have a job, I'll survive. I'm tired of being a cash cow. Laura shook her head admiringly. I'm proud of you. Honestly. You're finally fighting back. After work, Kimberly stopped at the regular supermarket near home. She wandered between the aisles, putting groceries in her cart. Imitation crab sticks, package $20, took 3. Salted herring, 15, 2 pieces. Lightly salted trout, $50, 1. Capelin roe, $20, 2 jars. Mayo, eggs, beets, carrots, cucumbers, tomatoes, greens. At the register it rang up $290. Perfect. At home she hid the bags in the bottom drawer of the refrigerator, where Matthew never looked. In the evening he returned tired but satisfied. At work they'd fixed the servers, management praised him. At dinner he asked, so, did you go to the market? Yeah. Kimberly nodded, continuing to eat buckwheat. Bought everything. Seriously? That fast? Why drag it out? Just bought it. Got a good vendor, gave me a discount. Matthew beamed. Well, good job. So it didn't come out to 12,000? Much less, she answered evasively. I tried to save. My smart girl. He kissed her on the cheek. Mom will be thrilled. She called, by the way, asking if everything was okay. I told her you'd already shopped. She was so happy. Says she's expecting us on the 31st at 4 o'clock, so we have time to arrange everything beautifully. Kimberly nodded silently. Inside her rose a strange mixture of excitement and anxiety. She had never before gone into open conflict, always gave in, bent, stayed silent. Now for the first time in 3 years she decided to rebel. A small, quiet rebellion, but still a rebellion. The next days flowed in the usual rhythm. Matthew went to work, returned in the evening, told news, played video games. Kimberly also worked, cooked dinner, watched series. Outwardly everything was calm. But inside she felt tension, like before a storm. On Wednesday evening Barbara called. Matthew, as always, answered on speakerphone. Hello, Mom. Matthew, sweetheart, how are things? Did you check on Kimberly? Did she buy the salmon? Matthew glanced at Kimberly in confusion. She prompted him. Fresh? Fresh, Mom. Well, good. Tell her to choose a fatty one, so it's red, not pale. Otherwise she'll get some junk, the guests will laugh. Matthew nodded, although his mother couldn't see him. Okay, I'll tell her. Mom, what else do you need? Just you with the delicacies, that's the main thing. I've already warned everyone. Lucy, and Carl with Arthur, and Zelda. I'm telling them, come over, I'll have a royal table. Sturgeon, caviar, salmon, not some Olivier salad with hot dogs. Kimberly clenched her fists. Matthew cheerfully replied, Don't worry, Mom, everything will be top-notch. That's great. Okay, won't bother you, kisses. Say hi to Kim. She hung up. Matthew put away his phone and said in a guilty tone, Kim, Mom's asking for the salmon to be good quality. Did you get a decent one? Excellent, Kimberly lied impassively. Don't worry. He exhaled with relief and went to the room. Kimberly stayed in the kitchen, teeth clenched. A royal table, guests will gasp. Barbara was already boasting to the relatives, accepting compliments in advance, basking in the glory of a generous hostess, on someone else's money, on Kimberly and Matthew's money, who could barely make ends meet. On Thursday Kimberly's mother called. Sweetheart, how are things? What are you planning for New Year's? Hi, Mom. We're going to my mother-in-law's. She's gathering all the relatives. Won't you stop by our place? At least for an hour on January 1st? We'll try, Mom. We'll see how everything goes there. Her mother was silent, then carefully asked, Kimberly, is everything okay with you? Your voice sounds strange. Everything's fine, Mom. Just tired, pre-holiday rush. You be careful there, sweetheart, don't let them push you around. I know what your mother-in-law is like. Kimberly smirked. Her mother really did know. She'd warned her more than once. Barbara is a cunning woman, self-serving. Be on your guard with her. But Kimberly hadn't listened then. She thought her mother was exaggerating, that her mother-in-law was just strict, but fair. It took 3 years to understand her mother was right. Don't worry, Mom, this time everything will be different, Kimberly said mysteriously. How so? You'll see. I'll tell you later. They chatted a bit more and said goodbye. Kimberly sat by the window, looking at the evening city. Snow was falling continuously, covering the streets with a white blanket. Garlands blinked with multicolored lights. The holiday was approaching relentlessly. On Friday evening Barbara called again. Matthew, tell Kimberly to get Alaskan caviar, don't skimp. It's for the guests. It needs to look nice. Matthew dutifully passed it along. Kimberly nodded. Okay, Barbara. And also, dear Kimberly. Her mother-in-law switched to a saccharine tone. You're such a gem for trying so hard. I was telling Lucy yesterday what a wonderful daughter-in-law I have, does everything for the family, doesn't spare anything. She sends her regards, says she wishes Arthur had a wife like you. Kimberly almost laughed. Her mother-in-law's hypocrisy knew no bounds. She was already accepting thanks in advance, already bathing in compliments, already painting herself a picture of triumph. And Kimberly listened silently and thought, just a few more days, hold on. On Saturday, Matthew spent the whole day at home, playing a new game he'd downloaded the day before. Kimberly cleaned, cooked lunch, did laundry. In the evening they watched a comedy, laughed, ate popcorn. An ordinary day off, quiet, peaceful, the last before the storm. On Sunday Barbara came to visit them herself. A rare occasion, she didn't like going visiting, preferred receiving at her place. She showed up without warning, around 2 in the afternoon, with a cake in her hands. "Well, my dears, how are things?" "I brought a cake, baked it myself." She placed the box on the table. Matthew rushed to hug her. "Mom, thank you. You know I adore your cakes." Barbara beamed, patted her son on the cheek. "Of course I know. For you, sweetheart, anything." Kimberly silently put on the kettle. The cake was bought, that was obvious. She recognized the box from the bakery on the first floor of their building. But Matthew didn't notice such details. For him, Mom always baked, cooked, made things from scratch, even if she actually bought them. Over tea, Barbara animatedly talked about preparation for the holiday. "I've already planned everything. Lucy with her husband will come at 4, Arthur with Carl at 5, Zelda at 6, Veronica with her family also promised at 5. We'll set the table by 7, so everything's ready by midnight. Kimberly, you'll bring the groceries with you, right?" "I'll arrange them on the kitchen counter right away, make it look beautiful." "Of course, Barbara," Kimberly answered calmly. "I'll bring everything." "Well, good. I've already prepared the plates. Special ones, crystal, for delicacies. Bought 15 years ago, still from the old store, real crystal. We'll lay out the salmon on them, caviar in little dishes, sturgeon in slices. It'll be gorgeous." Matthew listened, nodding admiringly. Kimberly drank her tea and stayed silent. Barbara continued. "Lucy called me yesterday, asks, 'Barb, is it true you ordered sturgeon?' I say, of course it's true. My daughter-in-law tried hard, bought everything the best. She's so envious, says her Arthur with his wife only made dumplings for the holiday. And look at my spread." She proudly straightened her shoulders, sipped her tea. Matthew beamed. Kimberly looked at her mother-in-law and thought, 3 more days, 3 days, and you'll get what you deserve. Barbara stayed with them for an hour, then started getting ready to go home. "Okay, kids, won't bother you. I still have a ton of things to do, wash the curtains, mop the floors, wipe down the table. Expecting you on the 31st. Don't be late." Matthew walked her to the door, helped her get dressed, kissed her goodbye. When she left, he returned to the kitchen satisfied. "Kim, Mom's such a trooper. At her age doing so much." Kimberly said nothing. She knew. Barbara hadn't washed the curtains in 3 months, mopped the floors once a week if at all, and wiped the table only before guests, but Matthew believed in the legend of the hard-working hero mother, and convincing him otherwise was pointless. Monday, December 29th, pre-holiday bustle reigned at work. Everyone was finishing reports, congratulating each other, exchanging gifts. Laura congratulated Kimberly, handing her a box of chocolates. "Here, girlfriend, and remember, you're doing the right thing. Let that mother-in-law of yours finally understand that people aren't ATMs." "Thanks, Laura." Kimberly hugged her. "You're the best." In the evening Matthew came home from work and announced, "Kim, Mom called again. Asked to double-check. You definitely bought the caviar? She's afraid you might have forgotten." "Matthew, I've said 10 times already, I bought everything." Kimberly barely held back her irritation. "Tell your mother not to worry. There'll be a surprise." "What surprise?" "You'll see." He shrugged in confusion and went to the room. Kimberly stayed in the kitchen, finishing her pasta with cheese. Tomorrow was Tuesday, the day after was Wednesday, and on Wednesday they'd go to Barbara's, and then everything would be decided. Tuesday passed in agonizing anticipation. Kimberly barely made it to the end of the workday. Matthew showed up at home at 8 in the evening, tired but cheerful. "Kim, the boss gave out New Year's bonuses. $1,500. Maybe we should buy more caviar? For backup? No need, she said firmly. We already have everything. Better to put that money aside for January, we still have the loan to pay. Matthew frowned but didn't argue. He changed, had dinner, sat down to play. Kimberly went to bed early but couldn't fall asleep for a long time. Tomorrow everything would change. On the morning of December 31st, Matthew woke up in high spirits. Kim, get up. Today's New Year's, we need to get ready for Mom's. Kimberly got up, took a shower, got dressed. She put on a gray dress, modest, without jewelry. Matthew dressed in a shirt and jeans. They had breakfast. Kimberly took the bags of groceries from the refrigerator. 2 modest bags. Matthew looked at them in surprise. Seems like not much. Is everything there? Everything, she answered shortly. Just packed it compactly. Well, okay, let's go. They went downstairs, got in the car. Matthew drove, Kimberly sat next to him, holding the bags on her lap. The drive to Barbara's house took 20 minutes. They parked in the courtyard, got out, snow crunched under their feet, it was freezing, about 5 degrees. The sky was gray, low. They went up to the 3rd floor. Matthew rang the doorbell. Barbara flung it open instantly, as if she'd been standing behind the door waiting. She wore a fancy apron with ruffles over a dressy outfit. Hair styled in a high bun, bright lipstick on her lips. Well, dears, you're here? Come in, come in. She kissed Matthew, nodded to Kimberly. Dear Kimberly, bring the delicacies to the kitchen. My sister with the nephews will be here in an hour, we need to arrange everything beautifully. Kimberly went to the kitchen. The table was already half set. Salads in bowls, sliced deli meat, cheese, olives. On the stove stood a pot of borscht, something was baking in the oven, it smelled like chicken. Barbara shuffled after her, rubbing her hands in anticipation. Well, come on, take it out, we'll lay out the salmon on this platter, the caviar in these little dishes, and the sturgeon right here, it'll be simply magnificent. Kimberly put the bags on the table, slowly opened the first one, took out a package of imitation crab sticks, then a second, a third, herring, trout, capelin roe. Barbara froze. Her face stretched, her eyes widened. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked at the groceries, then at Kimberly, then at the groceries again. Matthew, standing in the doorway, stepped closer. Kim, what is this? Kimberly impassively laid out the last jar of roe on the table. Groceries for the holiday, Barbara. Her mother-in-law snapped out of it, her voice trembling. What is this? Where's the salmon? There's no salmon. And the caviar? Capelin roe. Here it is. And the sturgeon? Barbara's voice shot up an octave. Where's the sturgeon? That's not here either. Her mother-in-law grabbed the counter, turned pale, then abruptly flushed red. What have you done? I gave you a list. It was written in black and white. Kimberly turned to face her, speaking calmly, looking straight into her eyes. Barbara, you understand, that's $12,000. Matthew and I make $15,000. We have a loan, $3,000 a month, rent $3,500, utilities $800. That leaves $7,700 for living. $12,000 is almost 2 of our paychecks. We don't earn that much. I bought what we could afford. Barbara swayed. Matthew leaned against the doorframe. His face was white as chalk. Her mother-in-law was breathing rapidly, unevenly. She clutched her heart. Do you understand what you've done? I told everyone, all the relatives, that we'd have a royal table. My sister Lucy with her husband are coming now, nephews Arthur and Carl with their wives, neighbor Zelda. 20 people. What will I tell them? What will I show them? Imitation crab sticks? Show them what you have, Kimberly shrugged. You're humiliating me. Her mother-in-law was choking with rage. You did this on purpose, deliberately ruined everything. Matthew stepped forward, his voice sounding hollow. Kim, Mom gave you a list. What's going on? Kimberly took out her phone, opened the calculator, held it out to her husband. Matt, calculate it yourself. Here are the salmon prices from the store website. $24 per pound. Multiply by 11. Here's the caviar price. $110. Here's the sturgeon. $27 per pound. Multiply by 9. Add it up. Matthew took the phone, tapped the screen with trembling fingers, calculated, recalculated, shook his head. His lips moved silently. Finally he exhaled. 11,800. I didn't know it was so expensive. I told you. Kimberly reminded him. That evening when you brought the list, I said it was 12,000. You said we'd figure it out somehow. He sank into a chair, put the phone on the table, stared at one spot. Barbara rushed around the kitchen, wringing her hands. Lord, what should I do? What should I do? Guests in an hour. I promised. I told them. Kimberly sat down on a stool, arms crossed. Could you have given Veronica such a list, Barbara? She has a bigger budget than ours. She makes $20,000 a month, works as chief accountant at an oil and gas construction company, lives in her own apartment, her husband bought her a car, and Danny's not little at all, he's 8, he's in 3rd grade. Her mother-in-law froze. A whole range of emotions was reflected on her face: confusion, anger, fear. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Veronica. Veronica is my daughter. She has it hard enough. She has a family, a child. And we don't have a family? Kimberly clarified calmly. Matthew and I aren't a family? You must respect your elders. I'm your mother-in-law. And you must respect us. We're not an ATM, Barbara. Matthew raised his head. His eyes were red. He looked at his mother, and in that look something new could be read: bewilderment, hurt, disappointment. Mom, is Kim right about Veronica? Barbara jerked. What? What are you talking about? Did you really order chicken for Veronica? And delicacies for us? Her mother-in-law hesitated, licked her lips. Well, I thought, Veronica's with a child, she already. Danny's 8 years old, Mom. He's not a baby, and Veronica earns good money, I know that. But she's my daughter. Barbara cried out. I have the right. Silence hung in the kitchen. Matthew slowly nodded. You have the right, of course you do. But then we also have the right to refuse. What? You're on her side? Against your own mother? I'm on the side of common sense. Mom, $12,000, that's insane. We couldn't spend that much. Kim tried to explain it to me, and I didn't listen. Sorry, Kim. Kimberly nodded silently. Barbara grabbed her apron, fidgeting with the ruffles. So what do we do now? Guests are coming. Say it's the recession, Kimberly suggested. Or that prices went up, or that plans changed. Set the table with what you have. Veronica will bring chicken. You have borscht, salads. That's plenty. Plenty? I promised sturgeon. You shouldn't have promised what you can't buy with your own money. Her mother-in-law opened her mouth, but then the doorbell rang in the hallway. She flinched, turned pale. Lord, that's Lucy. They're already here. Matthew stood up, went to open the door. Guests poured into the apartment. Aunt Lucy, a large woman about 60 in a bright sweater, her husband Steve, a thin man with a receding hairline, followed by nephews Arthur and Carl with their wives. Everyone carried bags with gifts, bottles of champagne, boxes of chocolates. Barb. Happy New Year. Lucy kissed her sister, looked around. Well, is the table set? Where are the promised delicacies? Barbara smiled convulsively. Lucy dear, come in, take off your coats. Everything's ready. I'll show you now. The guests went to the kitchen. Lucy immediately rushed to the table, surveyed the dishes. Her face fell. Barb, where's the sturgeon? You bragged all week that your daughter-in-law would set such a table, finger-licking good. Barbara fidgeted. You see, Lucy, the recession, prices went up, it didn't work out. Carl, the younger nephew, laughed. Aunt Barb, you said you'd go all out. We specifically came to you instead of to my mother-in-law's. Thought it'd be fancier here, but here's imitation crab sticks. Arthur chimed in. Yeah, a real royal feast. Lucy shook her head reproachfully. Oh, Barb, why did you promise if you couldn't buy it? Barbara stood red-faced, eyes downcast. Matthew silently poured tea for the guests. Kimberly sat in the corner, observing. Inside her raged a mixture of gloating and pity, but she didn't allow herself a word. Half an hour later, Veronica arrived with her husband and son Danny. Veronica, a tall blonde about 35, in an expensive fur coat and heeled boots. Her husband Tyler, a solid man with a beard. Danny, a lively boy in brand new sneakers. Mom, Happy New Year. Veronica hugged Barbara, placed on the table a pot with chicken, a casserole dish with potatoes, a bowl with herring under a fur coat. Here as you ordered. Lucy said caustically, oh, here come the main dishes. And we thought Barb would have delicacies. Turns out, imitation crab sticks. Veronica raised her eyebrows in surprise, surveyed the table. Mom, where's the promised sturgeon? It didn't work out, Barbara said through gritted teeth. Strange. Veronica sat down at the table. You gave me a simple list, didn't you? Chicken, potatoes, herring. You said with Danny it was hard for me, he's still little. Lucy perked up. Wait, Veronica, she ordered you simple groceries. And what about Kimberly? Veronica glanced at Kimberly. Kim, what did they order from you? Kimberly shrugged. Salmon, 11 pounds, red caviar 2 pounds, sturgeon 9 pounds. Veronica whistled. Mom, that's like 12,000 minimum. 11,800, Kimberly clarified. Lucy slapped her hand on the table. Barb, are you out of your mind? Why did you give them such a list? Barbara was silent, fidgeting with a napkin. Veronica frowned. Mom, I don't understand. My salary is 20,000, Tyler's is 30, we live in our own apartment. And Kimberly with Matthew together make 15, they rent an apartment, they're paying off a loan. Why did you order chicken for me and sturgeon for them? Because you're my daughter, Barbara snapped. I have the right to protect you. Veronica leaned back in her chair. Protect me at someone else's expense? Seriously? Mom, I'm not 18. I'm an adult, I earn my own money. Why did you stick them with this? I thought they could manage, her mother-in-law muttered. How could they manage? That's almost 2 of their paychecks. Matthew finally spoke. His voice sounded quiet but firm. Mom, what about the sunroom loan? Remember? We took out $300,000. You promised to pay it back in 3 months. 6 months have passed. Where's the money? Barbara flinched. I told you, the lot didn't sell. Lucy interrupted. Barb, you told me yourself you got rid of the garden plot for $500,000 in July. I was even surprised why you needed a sunroom if you sold the plot. A deathly silence reigned in the kitchen. Matthew turned pale. Mom, you sold the plot in July? Barbara fidgeted, looked away. Well, yes, but the money went to the sunroom. The sunroom cost $200,000, Kimberly said. We saw the estimate. Where did the other $300 go? Barbara, didn't you go to a resort in October? Lucy told me. I went, Barbara whispered. Doctors prescribed it, for my health. How much did the trip cost? Matthew asked. $50,000, Lucy answered instead of her sister. She bragged to me. And she bought new furniture, a sofa, and a wardrobe. That's another $100,000. Matthew stood up from the table. His face was white, his lips trembling. Mom, are you serious? We're living in a rental apartment, denying ourselves everything. Paying off your loan, $3,000 every month. Not buying clothes, not going to the movies, not saving for housing. And you? You're vacationing at resorts? Buying furniture? Barbara burst into tears, burying her face in her palms. I'm old, sick, the doctors prescribed it. Kimberly stood up, approached the table. Her voice was calm and cold. Barbara, starting January 1st, we're not paying the loan anymore. You took it out, you pay it. All the documents have you listed as a co-borrower. You'll either pay yourself or sell this apartment with the sunroom. Your business. Her mother-in-law raised her tear-stained face. How? How can you? I'm a mother. Matthew's mother. And that's exactly why you should have respected us, Kimberly answered. Not used us like cash cows. Veronica sighed heavily. Mom, Kimberly's right. You crossed the line. I would have told you off long ago if I were in her shoes. Tyler, Veronica's husband, nodded. I agree. Barbara, you're wrong. The guests exchanged glances. Lucy pressed her lips together. Barb, you should be ashamed. Bragging on other people's money is the lowest thing. Arthur and Carl nodded silently. Zelda, the neighbor who had appeared unnoticed during the conversation, whispered to Lucy, I always knew Barb was greedy. But this much. Barbara sobbed out loud. Matthew stood by the window, looking at the falling snow. Kimberly gathered her things, put on her jacket, approached her husband. Matt, let's go home. He nodded without turning around. They said goodbye to the guests, left the apartment, went down the stairs in silence, got in the car. Matthew started the engine but didn't move. He sat gripping the steering wheel, staring at the windshield. Finally he said quietly, Forgive me, Kim. I'm an idiot. I didn't see what was happening. Kimberly placed her hand on his shoulder. The main thing is you see it now. He turned around, drove. The drive home took the same 20 minutes. They went up to the apartment, undressed, went to the kitchen. It was the beginning of 8 in the evening. 5 hours remained until the new year. Matthew sat at the table, lowering his head onto his hands. Kimberly put on the kettle, got out cookies, sat down next to him, hugged her husband's shoulders. He pressed against her, and she felt his body shudder with silent sobs. She was silent, stroking his back, letting him cry it out. Outside the window snow swirled, the city was preparing for the holiday, and in their small rental apartment a world that had been built over 3 years was collapsing. Matthew raised his head, wiped his eyes with his sleeve. I really am an idiot. How could I not see? How? You loved her, Kimberly said quietly. You trusted her. That's normal. Normal? She used us for years, and I made you stay silent, buy things, spend money. God, Kim, how much money did we give her? Kimberly thought, calculating in her mind. Over 3 years? Probably 50,000, maybe more. The sunroom loan, birthday gifts, holiday groceries, the chandelier, bathroom renovation, new refrigerator, all little things, but if you add it up. 50,000, he repeated, shaking his head. With that money we could have saved a down payment for a mortgage, or bought a car, or at least given ourselves a decent vacation. And we lived on scraps, denied ourselves everything, and she went to resorts. The kettle boiled. Kimberly poured 2 mugs, added sugar. They sat in silence, drinking hot tea, listening as behind the wall the neighbors laughed, turning up the music louder, starting to celebrate. You know, Matthew said, I'm remembering now. How many times did you try to tell me? You hinted, showed me expense spreadsheets, asked me to think. And I brushed it off. Said Mom was more important, Mom was alone, Mom needed help. How blind I was. Not blind, Kimberly objected, loyal. Those are different things. Loyal? I betrayed you, Kim, for a mother who was basically milking us. You had every right to leave, file for divorce. Why didn't I leave? She shrugged. I loved you. I love you. I hoped that someday you'd understand. Understand, he smiled bitterly. I'm 33 years old, and I only now understood that my mother was using me. Brilliant. Better late than never. They sat until midnight together. They set a small table, Olivier salad that Kimberly quickly made from leftover groceries, sandwiches with deli meat, tangerines, $20 champagne. When the clock began to strike, Matthew hugged his wife, held her tight. Happy New Year, Kim. Forgive me. I promise from this moment everything will change. Happy New Year, Matt. She kissed him. I believe you. They drank champagne, ate, went to bed at 3 in the morning. Matthew fell asleep quickly, hugging Kimberly. She lay looking at the ceiling, listening to his even breathing. Inside was a strange feeling, a mixture of relief, fatigue, and anxiety. What would happen next? Would Barbara surrender? Or would she start a war? Would Matthew withstand his mother's pressure? Or would he break again? On the morning of January 1st, they woke up late, around 11. Matthew first thing checked his phone. 23 missed calls from his mother, 10 messages. He opened the conversation, read aloud. Matthew, answer immediately. Matthew, sweetheart, please call. We need to talk. You can't treat me like this. I'm your mother. You owe me. All the relatives are condemning you. Lucy said you're ungrateful. I'm sick, I feel terrible. Call back urgently. Right. Matthew silently deleted all the messages, blocked his mother's number, put the phone on the nightstand. Maybe this is cruel, he said, but I need a break. I need to think, figure myself out. That's normal, Kimberly supported him. You have a right to time. They had breakfast with the leftover Olivier, drank coffee. Matthew suggested, Kim, let's celebrate New Year's properly today. Ourselves. Set the table, buy decent groceries, sit together. Like we originally planned. Let's do it, she agreed. They got dressed, drove to the supermarket, bought chicken, potatoes, vegetables for salad, a bottle of good champagne for $100, a cake. They spent $500, but Matthew didn't flinch. This was their money for their holiday. They returned home, cooked together, laughed, turned on music. By 6 in the evening the table was set, modest but beautiful. They sat down, poured champagne. Matthew raised his glass. To us. To being a team. To me never being such a blind idiot again. To us, Kimberly echoed. They clinked glasses, drank, ate, talked, made plans. Matthew got out a notebook, they made a new budget together. Without the sunroom loan, they had $3,000 more per month. They decided to save $1,000 for a mortgage down payment, spend $1,000 on life, clothes, entertainment, movies, cafes. The remaining $1,000 reserved for unexpected expenses. In a year we'll save $12,000, Kimberly calculated. In another year, 24. That'll be enough for a down payment on a one-bedroom. 2 years, Matthew repeated thoughtfully. Sounds doable if Mom doesn't interfere. She won't, Kimberly said firmly. You blocked her number. I blocked it, he nodded. But she'll find a way to reach me. She'll call from another phone. Or come over, or send Veronica. Then you'll say we need time. That's all. He squeezed her hand. You're right. I have to be firm, otherwise everything will go back to square one. The evening passed calmly, warmly. They watched a comedy, ate cake, drank tea, went to bed around midnight. Matthew hugged Kimberly, pressed against her. You know, this is the first holiday when I'm truly calm. Don't have to go anywhere, don't have to smile, pretend joy. We're just the two of us, and it's wonderful. Kimberly kissed him on the forehead. I feel good too. January 2nd passed quietly. They slept in, watched movies, cooked lunch together. Matthew didn't unblock his mother once. Kimberly saw how he sometimes looked at the phone, as if expecting a call, but quickly looked away. In the evening Kimberly's mother called. Sweetheart, how was the holiday? What happened at your mother-in-law's? Kimberly briefly recounted. Her mother listened, gasped, shook her head. I told you. I told you that woman was self-serving. So, how's Matthew? Fine. Seems like he understood. Seems like? Kimberly, don't give in if he starts pressuring you again. You did the right thing. That woman needed to learn a lesson. She learned it, Mom. All the relatives saw how she disgraced herself. And she deserved it. Okay, dear, won't bother you. Come visit us on the weekend, we'll eat properly, like normal people. I'll bake pies. We'll definitely come, Mom. Thanks. On January 3rd, Veronica called. Matthew answered, put it on speaker. Matt, hi. How are you? Fine, V. And you? I'm okay. Listen, I'm calling about Mom. She's hysterical, saying you abandoned her. I'm not in a fight, I just took a break. I understand. Matt, I'm on your side, honestly. Mom crossed the line. I told her myself, it's your own fault, you brought it on yourself. But she won't listen. Says you're ungrateful, that she raised you alone, that you owe her. V, I don't owe her anything. I'm grateful for the upbringing, yes. But that doesn't mean I'm obligated to support her till the end of her days, especially if she lies and manipulates. Agreed. But she won't calm down. She'll keep calling, coming over, pressuring. Are you ready? Ready. Let her call. I won't answer. Let her come, I won't open the door. Veronica sighed. Okay. Good luck to you. If anything, I'm here. And say hi to Kimberly. Tell her I admire her patience. I will. Thanks, V. He hung up. Kimberly asked, will you really not open the door if she comes? Really, Matthew answered firmly. I have to show that I don't give in to manipulation anymore. January 4th, Sunday. Matthew and Kimberly decided to go to the mall. They'd wanted to buy winter clothes for a long time. They took $2,000 from the reserve, went. They bought Matthew boots, his old ones had completely fallen apart. Kimberly got a new coat, dark blue, warm, beautiful. They also picked up little things, gloves, scarves, thermal mugs for coffee to go. They spent $1,800, but came out satisfied with bags of purchases. You know, Matthew said when they were drinking coffee at a mall cafe, I just realized how long we haven't bought ourselves anything. The last time I replaced my boots was 2 years ago. And you've been wearing that coat for 4 seasons. I wore it, Kimberly confirmed. But I didn't regret it. It was just offensive that the money wasn't going to us, but to someone who didn't even properly say thank you. It won't go there anymore, Matthew promised. I swear. In the evening when they returned home, someone rang the doorbell. Matthew looked through the peephole. Barbara stood on the landing. In her hands was a bag, her face was haggard, eyes red. Matthew stepped away from the door, shook his head. I won't open it. Barbara rang again. Then knocked. Matthew, I know you're home. Open up, we need to talk. Matthew stood silently. Kimberly put her hand on his shoulder, supporting him. Her mother-in-law continued knocking. Matthew, sweetheart, please, I brought pastries, your favorites, with meat. Open up, let's talk like normal people. Silence. Barbara sobbed. Matt, what are you doing? I'm your mother. How can you treat me like this? Matthew stepped to the door, said in a muffled voice, Mom, leave. I need time to think. I'll call when I'm ready. When you're ready. And I should wait? Sit and wonder if you'll forgive me or not. Yes, you should. Matthew. He turned around, went into the room, closed the door, sat on the bed, holding his head in his hands. Kimberly stayed in the hallway. Barbara knocked for another 10 minutes, begged, cried, then fell silent. Footsteps were heard on the stairs. She left. Kimberly looked into the room. Matt, how are you? I don't know. What if she's really sick? What if she's ill? Matthew, if she were really sick, she wouldn't have knocked on the door for 10 minutes, she'd be lying at home, would have called an ambulance. This is manipulation. You understand that, right? He nodded. I understand. It's just hard. She's my mother. All my life I obeyed her, helped, did what she asked. And now I closed the door in her face. I feel like a traitor. You're not a traitor. You just set boundaries. That's normal. That's what adults do. Matthew smiled tensely. Adults. I'm 33, and I'm only now learning to be an adult. January 5th, Monday. Matthew returned to work, Kimberly too. The workday passed in the usual mode. Calls, documents, reports. In the evening when Kimberly returned home, Matthew was already there, sitting at the laptop. Kim, look, he turned the screen to her. I found several apartment options with a mortgage. 1 bedrooms, inexpensive but decent, in our area. I like this one. 380 square feet, fresh renovation, 7th floor, there's an elevator. Price $400,000, down payment 10%, $40,000. If we save $1,000 a month, in 3 years we'll save $36,000. We can get another $4,000 with a small loan or borrow from friends. Kimberly sat down next to him, looking at the apartment photos. Bright, spacious, windows facing the courtyard. Separate kitchen, combined bathroom but new. Good apartment. 3 years, she repeated thoughtfully. That's doable if we don't get distracted by extraneous spending. We won't, Matthew promised. I won't let Mom interfere with our budget anymore. No matter what she says. What if she asks again? Says she's sick, that she's in need? I'll say, contact Veronica. Or sell the apartment. Or find a job. She's 62, she's not a feeble old woman. She can work somewhere. As a cleaner, for example. Or a caregiver. Kimberly smirked. Barbara as a cleaner? I'd have to see that. Let her go. If she's really in need, she'll find a way to earn money instead of draining us of everything. January 6th, Tuesday. Lucy called, Matthew's aunt. He answered cautiously. Hello? Matthew, hello. This is Aunt Lucy. Don't worry. I'm not calling to persuade you. I just wanted to say you did the right thing. I've seen for a long time that Barb lost her conscience. But I stayed silent. Thought it wasn't my business. Now I see I should have intervened earlier. Aunt Lucy, thank you. It's important for me to hear that. Barb called me yesterday, complained that you abandoned her, that you're ungrateful. I told her, it's your own fault. No need to brag on other people's money, no need to milk your daughter-in-law. She got offended, hung up. Let her. Maybe now she'll finally understand. Thanks, Aunt. Really, thank you. Don't mention it, nephew. You and Kimberly hang in there, don't give in. Barb knows how to play on pity, but it's all an act. I've known her 40 years, she's my sister, but she is what she is. Okay, won't bother you. Be happy. She hung up. Matthew put down the phone, exhaled. At least someone's on our side. January 7th, Wednesday. Matthew unblocked his mother's number, decided the pause was sufficient, time to talk. He called himself. Barbara answered on the first ring. Matthew, finally. I already thought you'd completely given up on me. I didn't give up, Mom. I just needed to think. And what did you decide? That starting January 1st we're not paying the loan. You'll pay it yourself or sell the apartment. What? Matthew, are you out of your mind? I don't have that kind of money. You sold the lot for $500,000. The sunroom cost $200. Where's the remaining $300? It's gone. I spent it all on the sunroom. Mom, don't lie. Aunt Lucy told me about the resort and the furniture. $50,000 for the trip, $100,000 for furniture. That's $150. Where did the other $150 go? Barbara hesitated. Well, on living, on groceries, on clothes. In 3 months? Mom, seriously? Matthew, have you become completely heartless? I'm your mother. And that's exactly why you shouldn't have lied. Mom, starting January 1st we're not paying the loan. If you want, pay it yourself. If you want, sell the apartment. Sell the apartment? Should I go out on the street? Not on the street. You'll sell the 3-bedroom for $700,000, buy a 1-bedroom for $300,000, you'll have $400,000 left. You can live on that for 10 years comfortably. How can you say such things? I can, Mom, because you brought it on yourself. Goodbye. He hung up. Barbara immediately called back. Matthew declined the call, blocked the number again. Kimberly hugged him. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of myself too, he smiled tiredly. For the first time in my life. January 8th, Thursday. In the morning at work Veronica called Matthew. Matt, Mom had a meltdown at my place, demanding that I persuade you. I refused. She said I'm a bad daughter, that I betrayed her. I answered, you betrayed everyone yourself when you lied and manipulated. Anyway, we fought. Just wanted to warn you. She'll be looking for other intermediaries now. Maybe she'll ask Arthur or Carl. Let her ask. I'll explain the situation to them too. Okay, hang in there, brother. You too, sis. January 9th, Friday. The last day before returning to a full work schedule. Matthew and Kimberly sat at home in the evening, planning the weekend, decided to visit Kimberly's parents as promised. Someone rang the doorbell. Matthew looked through the peephole. Arthur, my nephew. He opened the door. Arthur, what happened? Hi, Uncle Matt, can I come in? Come in. Arthur went into the room, greeted Kimberly, sat on the sofa, began in a guilty tone. Uncle Matt, Aunt Barb asked me to come to you. She's asking you to forgive her, come back, start helping again. Says without your money she won't survive. Matthew sat down across from him. Arthur, I'll explain the situation. Mom borrowed $300,000 from us, promised to return it. Didn't return it. Spent it on herself. Resort, furniture, who knows what else. We paid off the loan for 6 months, $3,000 a month, lived on scraps. Meanwhile, Mom ordered delicacies for holidays worth $12,000 for us, and chicken for $300 for Veronica. See the difference? Arthur whistled. Holy crap. Uncle Matt, I didn't know. Aunt Barb said you just got offended over nothing. See, she lies to you too. So sorry, but I'm not going back. Let her solve her own problems. Got it. Okay, I'll pass it on. Though she'll probably have another meltdown. Let her have one. It's her choice. Arthur left. Matthew closed the door behind him, returned to the room. That's it, the last attempt failed. I think she'll back off now. Or she'll come up with something new, Kimberly noted. Let her come up with something. I won't give in. January 10th, Saturday. Matthew and Kimberly went to her parents. Kimberly's mother greeted them with pies, her father with strong hugs. They sat until evening, talked, laughed. Her mother asked about her mother-in-law. Kimberly honestly told the whole story. Her father nodded approvingly. You did the right thing, guys. Such people need to be put in their place immediately, not tolerated for years. We only realized it now, Matthew sighed. Better late than never, her father replied. The main thing is don't repeat the mistake. January 11th, Sunday. The day off passed calmly. Matthew and Kimberly walked around the city, stopped by a bookstore, drank coffee in a small cafe. In the evening they watched a movie, lying on the sofa in each other's arms. Life was slowly entering a new track, without a mother-in-law, without manipulation, without endless spending. January 12th, Monday. Matthew at work received a message from an unknown number. Matthew, this is Mom. Please unblock me. I need to talk to you. I understood my mistakes. Let's meet, discuss everything calmly. Matthew deleted the message, blocked the number, texted Veronica. Mom's writing from someone else's phone. Tell her until she returns the $300,000, there's nothing to talk about. Veronica answered. I'll tell her. But she won't return the money, that's obvious. Then there's nothing to talk about. January 13th, Tuesday. Kimberly at work received a call from Barbara. Her mother-in-law had found her work number, spoke in a pitiful voice. Dear Kimberly, what are you and Matthew doing? I'm old, sick, I have nothing to pay the loan with. Barbara, you have money from selling the lot. Pay with that. What money? I spent it all. Then sell the apartment. Goodbye. Kimberly hung up. Barbara called back. Kimberly declined the call, asked the secretary not to connect calls from this number anymore. January 14th, Wednesday. In the evening Matthew calculated. In 2 weeks without the loan they had an extra $3,000 left over. $1,000 set aside for the mortgage. $1,000 spent on groceries and little things. $1,000 left in reserve. The budget was working. Life was getting better. January 15th, Thursday. Lucy called. Matthew, I'm warning you. Barb has completely lost her mind. She's calling all the relatives, complaining about you, asking to borrow money. I refused, Arthur and Carl too. But she won't calm down. Says you abandoned her to die. Aunt Lucy, I didn't abandon her. I just stopped supporting her. Those are different things. I understand, nephew. Just be ready, she might pull something else. Barb's a stubborn woman. I'm ready. Thanks for the warning. January 16th, Friday. Matthew had a rush at work. The servers were acting up again. He stayed until 10 in the evening, came home tired. Kimberly greeted him with dinner and hot tea. They ate in silence. Then Matthew said, You know, Kim, I was thinking today, remembering what I was like 3 years ago. Spineless, dependent on my mother's opinion, unable to say no. And now? Now I'm different. I'm finally an adult. And it's thanks to you. Not only thanks to me, she objected. You wanted to change yourself. But you gave the push. If not for that list, not for your courage, I would have continued living in illusions. Thank you. She kissed him. You're welcome. January 17th, Saturday. Barbara appeared at their building at 9 in the morning, stood under the windows, shouting. Matthew. Kimberly. I know you're home. Come out. Let's talk. Matthew looked out the window, shook his head. I won't come out. Barbara stood for half an hour, then left. In the evening she texted Matthew from yet another unfamiliar number. You'll regret this. I'll die and it'll be your fault. Matthew replied. Mom, stop manipulating. If you feel bad, call an ambulance, don't stand under windows. Barbara didn't reply again. January 18th, Sunday. Matthew and Kimberly spent the whole day at home, cleaning, cooking, watching a series. In the evening Matthew said, I think she finally understood I'm not coming back. Maybe, Kimberly answered cautiously. Or maybe she's just preparing a new attack. Then we'll meet it fully armed. January 19th, Monday. At work an unfamiliar man called Matthew introduced himself as a bank employee. Matthew Anderson, hello. You have a loan for $300,000 registered as a co-borrower together with Barbara Sullivan. Payments haven't been received since January 1st. When do you plan to pay off the debt? I don't plan to, Matthew answered. The primary borrower is Barbara. Let her pay. But you, as co-borrower, are legally obligated to pay if the primary borrower doesn't pay. Obligated, but I won't. Contact Barbara. If she doesn't pay, sue, seize assets. You understand this could ruin your credit history? I understand, but that won't stop me. Goodbye. He hung up. Kimberly, who had heard the conversation, asked, Are you sure? Credit history is important if we're going to get a mortgage. I'm sure. We'll wait until the bank sues Mom, seizes her apartment, sells it, pays off the debt. After that I'll restore my credit history. It'll take time, but at least Mom will learn a lesson. Harsh. Fair. January 20th, Tuesday. Veronica called. Matt, Mom's hysterical, says the bank is threatening to seize the apartment, asking you to help. I won't help. I thought so. Listen, what if she really ends up without housing? She has money. $300,000 minimum, if not more. Let her pay the debt. Or sell the apartment, buy something cheaper, live on the difference. There are lots of options. But she's our mother. Veronica, whose side are you on? Yours, Matt. I just feel sorry for her. Even though she's a bitch. I feel sorry for her too. But pity isn't a reason to let yourself be used. Agreed. Okay, hang in there. January 21st, Wednesday. In the evening Barbara again stood under the windows, shouting, crying, begging. Neighbors looked out their windows, discussing. Matthew called the police. An officer arrived half an hour later, talked to Barbara, led her away. She didn't appear again that evening. January 22nd, Thursday. Matthew received a letter from the bank. Dear Matthew Anderson, we inform you that due to non-payment of the loan by the primary borrower, we are forced to begin collection proceedings through court. Please pay off the debt within 10 days. Otherwise, the case will be transferred to court. Matthew set the letter aside, didn't respond. Let them sue. January 23rd, Friday. Kimberly received a bonus of $2,000 for exceeding the sales plan. They decided to celebrate, went to a restaurant, ordered steaks and wine, sat until midnight talking about everything. Matthew confessed, "This is the best month of my life, despite all this mess with Mom." Why the best? Because I'm finally free. From guilt, from manipulation, from the constant feeling that I owe someone something. I'm living for myself, for us. Kimberly raised her glass. To freedom. To freedom, he echoed. January 24th, Saturday. The day passed calmly. They walked through the snowy park, fed squirrels, drank hot mulled wine at a street cafe. In the evening they returned home, took a bath together, went to bed early. Life was simple, quiet, happy. January 25th, Sunday. Matthew woke up with the thought, almost a month has passed. Mom couldn't break me. That means I made it. He said it out loud to Kimberly. She hugged him. You made it. I'm proud of you. And I'm proud of you. You turned out to be stronger than I thought. I was just tired of putting up with it. And you were right to stop. They spent the day at home, cooked lunch together, watched old comedies, made plans for the future. In the evening, before bed, Matthew said, "You know, Kim, I think in a month or two Mom will calm down, understand that I'm not coming back, and leave us alone. Maybe she'll even find a job, start living on her own money, or sell the apartment, move to a smaller one, live modestly but without debts. In any case, it's her choice, her life. And we have ours." Ours, Kimberly agreed. And it's finally begun. January 26th, Monday. Matthew returned from work around 7 in the evening, tired but calm. The kitchen smelled of fried potatoes. Kimberly was cooking dinner. He hugged her from behind, kissed the top of her head. How was your day? Fine. Clients called, processed orders, usual routine. And yours? Nothing special either. Servers are working, management isn't nitpicking, life's getting better. They had dinner, watched the news, were about to go to bed when someone rang the doorbell sharply, insistently, several times in a row. Matthew frowned, looked at the clock. 10:30. Who could it be at this hour? He approached the door, looked through the peephole. Barbara stood on the landing. Her face was distorted with rage, in her hands she clutched some papers. Matthew sighed, opened the door on the chain. Mom, what happened? What happened? Her mother-in-law's voice broke into a scream. This is what happened. She shoved papers through the gap between the door and the frame. Matthew took them, unfolded them. Court summons. The bank was filing a lawsuit to collect the loan, demanding the sale of Barbara's apartment to pay off the debt. Are you satisfied? Her mother-in-law shouted. You wanted me thrown out on the street? Congratulations, you got it. Mom, I didn't want you thrown out on the street. I wanted you to pay back the debt. You have money. What money? I spent it all. On what? The resort? Furniture? What else, Mom? Barbara hesitated, looked away. On living? On medicine? Mom, stop lying. Aunt Lucy told me where the money went. You bought yourself a new TV, gold earrings, a fur coat. Lucy saw you in that coat in December. Mink coat, costs about $15,000. Her mother-in-law turned pale. How? How do you know? Lucy said so. She's not on your side anymore, Mom. Nobody is. Everyone sees what you've been doing. Me? I have the right to spend money on myself. I lived in poverty my whole life. You have the right, but not at someone else's expense. You borrowed $300,000 from us, promised to return it, didn't return it. We paid off your loan for 6 months. Enough, Mom. Now pay yourself. I have nothing to pay with. Sell the apartment. It's my home, my only one. Then sell the coat or the earrings or the TV or go to work. You're 62 years old, you're a healthy woman. You can find work as a cleaner, salesperson, caregiver. You'll make $3,000, that's enough for the loan and for living. Barbara choked with indignation. Me? A cleaner? You want me mopping floors? Why not? Millions of people do it. Honest work, decent job. You're mocking me. No, Mom, I'm telling the truth. You can work, you can earn, you can support yourself, but you don't want to. You're used to living at someone else's expense, mine, Veronica's, everyone around you. But that's over. Her mother-in-law grabbed the doorframe, swayed. You're a monster. I gave birth to you, raised you. And you? You didn't give birth to me, Mom. You're my mother, yes. But that doesn't mean I'm obligated to support you until the end of your days, especially when you lie, manipulate, drain money from me. Matthew. Barbara's voice filled with tears. Please, please help, I'll die without this apartment. You won't die. You'll sell the 3-bedroom for $700,000, buy a 1-bedroom for $300,000, you'll have $400,000 left. You can live on that money for 10 years comfortably if you spend wisely. I don't want a 1-bedroom. I'm used to this apartment. Then work, pay the loan, stay here. The choice is yours, Mom. What choice? You back me into a corner. No, Mom, you backed yourself into a corner. I just stopped pulling you out. Barbara burst into loud sobs, leaned against the wall, slid to the floor. Matthew stood looking down at her, pity stirring inside, but he didn't let it take over. Can't give in, otherwise everything will go back to square one. Mom, go home, calm down, think, make a decision. When you're ready to talk like an adult, without hysterics and manipulation, call. We'll talk. He closed the door. Barbara sat on the landing for another 10 minutes, sobbing. Then she got up and left. Matthew returned to the kitchen. Kimberly sat at the table, hands clasped. Hard? Very. But right? Sure? Sure. They went to bed late, around 1 in the morning. Matthew couldn't fall asleep for a long time, tossed and turned, sighed. Kimberly stroked his back, silently supporting. Finally he fell into a restless sleep. January 27th, Tuesday. In the morning Matthew woke up with a heavy head, drank coffee, went to work. He worked on autopilot all day, thinking about yesterday. In the evening Veronica called. Matt, Mom called me today. She was sobbing, said you abandoned her, that she'll die on the street. I asked, where did the money from the lot go? She said she spent it on necessities. I clarified, a mink coat, is that a necessity? She went silent. Then hung up. Thanks for being on my side. I realized a long time ago that Mom crossed the line. I just kept quiet before, didn't want to interfere. Now I see I should have intervened earlier, maybe it wouldn't have come to this. Don't blame yourself. Everyone's responsible for their own actions. Mom made a choice, now she's reaping the consequences. Okay, hang in there, brother. If anything, I'm here. January 28th, Wednesday. Kimberly had a rush at work, quarterly reports due. She came home late, around 9. Matthew met her with dinner, made pasta with chicken, set the table, lit candles. What's the occasion? She asked in surprise. No occasion. I just want you to know I love you and I'm grateful for everything. Kimberly was touched, hugged him. I love you too. They had dinner, then sat on the sofa embracing, watching some melodrama. Matthew said, you know, Kim, if not for that New Year's, not for your courage, I would have kept living like that. Blind, deaf, dependent. You saved me. I didn't do anything special. I just got tired of staying silent. That's what's special. You found the strength to say enough. Many can't, they endure for years, break, leave. You didn't leave, you fought for us, for our future. You were worth fighting for, she said quietly. He kissed her, long and tenderly. They sat in the semi-darkness, to quiet music from the TV, and for the first time in 3 years felt truly free. January 29th, Thursday. Matthew received a letter from the bank at work. Dear Matthew Anderson, we inform you that the court hearing on the loan collection case is scheduled for February 15th. Attendance is mandatory. Matthew forwarded the letter to Kimberly with a comment. It begins. She replied, "We'll manage." In the evening they discussed what to say in court. Matthew decided, "I'll tell the whole truth. That Mom borrowed money, promised to return it, didn't return it. That she has means, money from selling the lot, fur coat, earrings, TV. That I don't refuse to pay according to the law, but I consider it unfair to pay off someone else's debt when the debtor can pay herself. Do you think the judge will understand?" Kimberly asked. "I don't know. But I'll tell the truth. The rest is up to the court." January 30th, Friday. Lucy called. "Matthew, Barb called me. Asked me to talk to you, convince you to help. I refused. Said it's your own fault, deal with it yourself. She got offended, said I'm a bad sister. I replied, you're a bad mother, and hung up." Matthew smirked. "Aunt Lucy, thank you. You're the real deal. Come on, I just love justice. Barb's been riding on other people's backs her whole life, time for her to work too. Okay, won't bother you. Good luck to you and Kimberly." January 31st, Saturday. Matthew and Kimberly decided to give themselves a day off. They drove out of town to a small village with a ski slope. They skied all day, drank mulled wine at a cafe at the foot of the mountain, laughed, took photos. In the evening they returned home tired but happy. "When was the last time we relaxed like this?" Kimberly asked, pulling off her boots. "About 3 years ago, I think. Before the wedding. We should get out more often. Now we can afford it." "We can," Matthew agreed. "And we will." February 1st, Sunday. The day passed lazily. They slept until afternoon, then cooked together, watched the series. In the evening Matthew opened the budget spreadsheet, calculated. In January they set aside $1,000 for the mortgage, spent $1,500 on living including the ski trip, the remaining $2,000 went to groceries and utilities. They didn't pay the loan, freed up $3,000. The budget balanced. If it continues like this, he told Kimberly, in 3 years we'll save for a down payment. Maybe even earlier if there are bonuses. "There will be," she said confidently. "I'll try my best." February 2nd, Monday. The work week began calmly. Matthew worked on servers, Kimberly processed orders. In the evening they met at home, had dinner, watched the news. An ordinary day, quiet, measured, without stress or conflicts. February 3rd, Tuesday. An unknown number called Matthew. He answered cautiously. "Hello? Matthew Anderson? This is Attorney Peterson. I represent Barbara Sullivan." Matthew frowned. "Listening. Your mother hired me to handle the case in court against the bank. She claims you refused to help her pay off the loan even though you are a co-borrower. Is that so?" "Yes, but I have reasons." "What reasons?" Matthew briefly outlined the situation. The debt, promised to return it, non-return, spending on herself, manipulation. The attorney listened in silence, then sighed. "I see. Matthew Anderson, I'll be honest. Your mother's case is weak. If you provide evidence of her spending, receipts, witness testimony, bank statements, the court may side with you. But by law you're obligated to pay as a co-borrower if the primary borrower doesn't pay. I'm willing to pay if Mom proves she really can't. But she can. She has money and property. Okay. See you in court." She hung up. Matthew texted Kimberly. "Mom has a lawyer. Preparing for court." Kimberly replied. "We'll gather all the evidence. Receipts, statements, witnesses. We'll win." February 4th, Wednesday. Matthew and Kimberly spent the whole evening collecting documents. Bank statements proving they'd been paying the loan for 6 months, receipts for the chandelier purchase, groceries for last year's holidays, screenshots of correspondence with Veronica discussing grocery lists. Veronica agreed to testify in court, confirmed that Barbara gave different lists to her daughters-in-law. Think it'll be enough? Kimberly asked. It should be. We'll prove Mom manipulated us, drained money, spent it on herself. The court will take that into account. And if not, then we'll pay. But I'll do everything to prove the truth. February 5th, Thursday. Lucy called. Matthew, I heard Barb hired a lawyer. Wonder where she got the money? Probably had a stash somewhere. Looks like it, Aunt Lucy. Listen, I can testify in court. I'll tell them Barb bragged about the coat and earrings, that she talked about the money from the lot. Maybe it'll help? It'll help. Thanks, Aunt. Don't mention it. Justice must prevail. February 6th, Friday. Matthew received an official notice from his mother's attorney. Barbara demanded that Matthew pay the entire remaining loan debt, $240,000. Otherwise, she threatened to file a counterclaim to collect the funds through court. Matthew showed the letter to Kimberly. She shook her head. She won't stop. She won't stop. But we won't give up either. February 7th, Saturday. The day off was spent preparing for court. Matthew and Kimberly rehearsed what to say, how to answer questions. Veronica came over, discussed her testimony. Lucy called, clarified details. By evening the plan was ready: tell the whole truth, provide evidence, call witnesses. Matthew felt confident. The truth was on their side. February 8th, Sunday. They rested, walked around the city, stopped by a bookstore, drank coffee. In the evening Matthew said, "You know, whatever the court decides, I'm calm because I did everything I could. Told the truth, set boundaries, protected us. That's what matters." That's what matters, Kimberly agreed. February 9th, Monday. Work week, ordinary, measured. Matthew worked on servers, Kimberly on sales. In the evenings they met at home, had dinner, discussed the day. Life flowed on calmly and predictably. February 10th, Tuesday. Veronica called. Matt, Mom called again. Asked me to refuse to testify. Said I was betraying the family. I answered, "You betrayed the family when you lied and manipulated." She hung up. "Thanks, V. You're the real deal. Come on. I'm just for justice. See you in court." February 11th, Wednesday. Matthew received a text from an unknown number. "Matthew, this is Mom. Please don't go to court. Let's settle everything peacefully. I'll return your money, just give me time." Matthew didn't reply. Deleted the message. February 12th, Thursday. Another message. "Matthew, please, I don't want to sue you, you're my son." Matthew again didn't reply. February 13th, Friday. Third message. "You'll regret this. I'll tell the judge everything, how you abandoned me. Everyone will know what an ingrate you are." Matthew blocked the number. February 14th, Saturday. The day before court. Matthew and Kimberly spent all day preparing, checking documents, rehearsing speeches, calling witnesses. In the evening they went to bed early. Tomorrow was an important day. February 15th, Sunday. Court was scheduled for 10 in the morning. Matthew and Kimberly arrived early, at 9:30. At the building entrance Veronica with her husband and Lucy were waiting. They hugged, wished each other luck. Barbara appeared at 5 to 10. With her was a lawyer, a woman about 50 in a strict suit. Her mother-in-law threw a hate-filled look at Matthew, walked past without greeting. They entered the courtroom. The judge, a man about 60, gray-haired with a tired face, declared the session open. First they heard from the bank representative. He outlined the essence of the case, provided documents confirming that the loan wasn't being paid, the primary borrower wasn't paying, the co-borrower wasn't either. Then Barbara's attorney took the floor. "Your Honor, my client Barbara Sullivan is a pensioner, has no additional sources of income. She took the loan to build a sunroom necessary to improve her living conditions. The co-borrower, her son Matthew Anderson, pledged to help with payments but stopped paying in January, citing personal grievances. We ask the court to consider my client's difficult financial situation and require the co-borrower to pay the loan in full. The judge nodded, turned to Matthew. Matthew Anderson, your position. Matthew stood, took out a folder with documents. Your Honor, I am indeed a co-borrower on this loan, but I want to explain the circumstances. My mother took this money supposedly for building a sunroom, promising to return it in 3 months after selling a lot. The lot was sold last July for $500,000. Here's an extract from the registry confirming the transaction. He handed the document to the judge, who studied it and nodded. Continue. The sunroom cost $200,000. Here's the estimate from the construction crew. The remaining $300,000 my mother spent on personal needs. A resort trip for $50,000. New furniture for $100,000. A mink coat for $150,000. Here's witness testimony from my Aunt Lucy Peterson, who saw these purchases. Lucy stood up, confirmed. Yes, Your Honor. Barbara Sullivan is my sister. I saw her in a new coat in December. She bragged about buying it herself. She also talked about the resort and furniture. The judge noted this, turned to Barbara. Barbara Sullivan, is this true? Her mother-in-law reddened, hesitated. Well, yes, I bought a few things, but they were necessities. I'm old, sick, I needed the trip for my health. And a coat for $150,000 is also for health, the judge clarified. Well, I had to wear something. Matthew continued. Your Honor, I don't refuse to pay according to the law as a co-borrower, but I consider it unfair to pay off a debt when the primary borrower has the ability to pay herself. My mother has an apartment worth about $700,000. She can sell it, buy cheaper housing, pay off the loan, and live on the remaining money. The attorney objected. Your Honor, housing is a constitutional right. You can't force someone to sell their only home. I'm not forcing, Matthew countered. I'm offering an option. Mom can work, can sell the coat and furniture, can turn to her daughter Veronica, who earns twice as much as me. But she chose the path of manipulation. She demanded delicacies worth $12,000 from me for New Year's, while demanding only $300 worth of groceries from her daughter. Here's correspondence with my sister Veronica confirming this. Veronica stood up. Your Honor, this is true. Mom ordered chicken, potatoes, and herring under a fur coat from me, groceries worth about $300. And she ordered salmon, caviar, and sturgeon from my brother for $12,000. Meanwhile, I earn $20,000 a month, and my brother with his wife together make $15,000. This is unfair. The judge frowned, turned to Barbara. Barbara Sullivan, can you explain this difference? Her mother-in-law fidgeted. Well, Veronica's my daughter, I didn't want to burden her. But you wanted to burden your son? I thought he could manage. Manage with an amount equal to almost 2 of his monthly salaries? Barbara was silent, looking at the floor. The judge sighed, looked at the documents, then announced. We'll take a 15-minute recess. After the recess, we'll announce the decision. Everyone left the courtroom. Matthew and Kimberly stood in the corridor holding hands. Veronica approached, hugged her brother. You did great. Said everything right. Lucy patted her nephew on the shoulder. I'm proud of you, Matthew. Barbara stood aside, talking to her attorney. Her face was pale, eyes red. Matthew caught her gaze. In it he read resentment, anger, and something else. Confusion, maybe. Or realization. After 15 minutes, everyone was called back to the courtroom. The judge announced the decision. Having reviewed the case materials, heard the parties and witnesses, the court rules, Barbara Sullivan is ordered to pay the bank loan in full independently. Matthew Anderson Sullivan is released from the obligation of co-borrower in connection with the fact that the primary borrower has the ability to pay off the debt independently but evades doing so, spending funds on secondary needs. In case of non-payment within 3 months, the bank has the right to file a lawsuit to collect the debt through sale of the debtor's property. The decision may be appealed within a month. The judge struck the gavel. The session was over. Matthew exhaled. Kimberly squeezed his hand. Veronica cried with joy, hugging her brother. Lucy wiped tears with a handkerchief. Barbara sat motionless, staring at one point. The attorney was saying something to her, but she wasn't listening. Then she slowly stood up, walked past Matthew without looking at him, and left the courtroom. Matthew watched her go. Inside was a strange mixture of relief, sadness, and liberation. He had won. But the victory was bitter. This was his mother, the woman who gave birth to him, raised him, loved him, in her own selfish way, but loved him. And now they stood on opposite sides of the barricade. "Matt, let's go," Kimberly said quietly. He nodded. They left the courthouse building all together. Matthew, Kimberly, Veronica with her husband, Lucy stood on the steps, breathing in the frosty air. "Well, nephew," Lucy said. "Now you're free. Live your life." "Thanks, Aunt, for everything. Come on. I just love justice, that's all." "Okay, I'm off. Good luck to you guys." She left. Veronica also said goodbye, left with her family. Matthew and Kimberly remained alone. They got in the car, drove home, were silent the whole way. Only at home did Matthew finally speak. "You know, I thought I'd be happy, that I'd feel victory, triumph. But I only feel tired and sad." "That's normal," Kimberly said. "You did the right thing, but that doesn't mean it's easy. She's my mother." "Yes, and you love her. But love doesn't mean allowing yourself to be used. Do you think she'll ever understand?" "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe not. But that's not your responsibility anymore, Matt. You did your part. The rest is her choice." He nodded. They went upstairs, undressed, lay on the sofa. Matthew hugged Kimberly, pressed his forehead to her shoulder. "Thank you for being there, for not letting me break, for loving me despite all this mess. I love you not despite, but because you're you. Strong, honest, fair. And I'm proud of you." They sat like that for a long time, embracing, silent. Outside the window dust was falling. The city was lighting its lights. Life went on. February 16th, Monday. Matthew returned to work. Colleagues congratulated him on winning the court case, he told a few close friends. In the evening at home they opened a bottle of wine with Kimberly, celebrated. "To justice," Matthew said. "To us," Kimberly added. February 17th, Tuesday. Veronica called. "Matt, Mom's selling the apartment. Posted an ad yesterday. Says she'll buy a one-bedroom, will live alone. Won't let me in the door, says I betrayed her." "Sorry," Matthew sighed. "But it's her choice." "Yeah. Okay, brother, hang in there. Maybe over the years she'll cool down, understand. Maybe." February 18th, Wednesday. Matthew ran into Barbara's acquaintance neighbor at the store, that same Zelda. She told him, "Matthew, I saw your mother yesterday. So sad, aged. Says she's selling the apartment, moving to a one-bedroom on the outskirts. Asked about you. I said I don't know, haven't seen you." She sighed and left. Matthew nodded, thanked her. In the evening he told Kimberly. She asked, "Do you regret it?" "I regret it. But not enough to go back and let myself be used again." "Right." March came quietly, without fuss. Matthew and Kimberly lived their life. They worked, saved for a mortgage, walked on weekends, went to the movies, met with friends. In the first month they saved $2,000, more than planned. Life without a loan and without maternal demands turned out to be much easier. At the end of March, Veronica called with news. "Matt, Mom sold the apartment, bought a one-bedroom for $280,000 on the outskirts, paid off the loan completely, about $300,000 left. Says she'll live on that money till the end of her days." "Well, good," Matthew said. "Means she managed." "She managed. And you know, Matt, I was thinking, maybe you were right. Maybe she really needed to learn a lesson. She rode on other people's backs her whole life, and now at least she understood what independence is. Maybe. Time will tell." April brought the first warm days. Matthew and Kimberly walked along the waterfront, ate ice cream, made plans. By the end of the month they had $4,500 in the mortgage account. 3 more years, and their own apartment. In early May, Matthew ran into Barbara by chance at the mall. She stood by a window display, looking at a dress. Aged, gaunt, hair completely gray. He froze, not knowing whether to approach or not. She raised her head, saw him. For several seconds they looked at each other silently. Then she nodded, turned away, and walked off. Matthew watched her go, feeling his heart squeeze, but didn't follow. Didn't call out. Just stood and watched her leave. A small lonely figure in a gray coat, dissolving into the crowd. In the evening he told Kimberly. She hugged him. Hard? Yes. But I don't regret it. And that's right. You did what you had to. The rest is time. Summer passed unnoticed. Matthew and Kimberly went on vacation, the first normal vacation in 3 years. A week at the beach, in a small hotel, with excursions and restaurants. They spent $5,000, but didn't regret a penny. This was their money, their vacation, their happiness. By the end of summer they had $11,000 in the account. The plan was working. Fall came rainy and cold. Matthew got a new job as a systems administrator at a large company, salary increased to $9,000. Kimberly got a promotion, now her salary was $8,500. Together $17,500. They started saving $1,500 a month. At the end of November, Veronica called. Matt, Mom found a job. Got hired as a caregiver for an old woman, takes care of her, makes $3,000. Says for the first time in her life she's earning on her own, and it's a strange feeling. Pride. Matthew smirked. Well, and she said she wouldn't work as a cleaner. It's not cleaner, brother. But still progress. Maybe she really understood something. Maybe. They celebrated New Year's together, at home, at a modest table. Olivier salad, baked chicken, champagne, tangerines. Simple, warm, without show-off or stress. At exactly midnight Matthew raised his glass. To us. To going through hell and surviving. To becoming stronger. To our future. To us. Kimberly echoed. They clinked glasses, drank. Matthew hugged his wife, held her close. You know, a year ago I stood in Mom's kitchen and felt the world collapsing. And now I stand here with you and feel the world is just beginning. Beginning, she agreed, and it will be good. 3 years later in February they moved into their first apartment. 1 bedroom, 400 square feet, 7th floor, windows facing the courtyard. Modest but theirs. They stood in the middle of the empty room, holding hands and smiling. Well, Matthew said, shall we start a new life? Let's start, Kimberly answered. And somewhere on the outskirts of the city, in a small 1-bedroom, Barbara sat by the window with a cup of tea and looked at the falling snow. On her lap lay a photograph. Matthew, 10 years old, smiling, hugging his mother. She stroked the photo with her finger, cried quietly, and thought that everything could have been different. If only she had, many years ago, chosen love instead of greed, respect instead of manipulation, honesty instead of lies. But time couldn't be turned back. All that remained was to live on with what she had, and maybe, someday, if she tried very hard, earn forgiveness. Or at least understanding. Matthew no longer called his mother, didn't write, didn't visit. But sometimes on quiet evenings he thought about her, inquired through Veronica how she was doing, whether she was healthy. And when Veronica said fine, working, living, he felt relief. He didn't wish her harm. He just didn't want to be part of her manipulations anymore. And that was his right. The right of an adult who had finally learned to say no.